Hello everyone! The long-awaited and promised Ushiten proposal is finally here, so I hope you will enjoy. Also, don't get spooked by my voice. You'll be hearing me much more in the future. For more info, check the pinned comment, I will explain there. But before we get to the video, allow me to direct you to the description below, where you can now find a link to Fandomian. Fandomian is an online merch shop with loads of great products of every fandom imaginable, including anime and, of course, Haikyuu merch. They even have Deteko and Shiratorizawa stuff, which is a small miracle on its own. And they even have sales now. By buying, not only you will get some awesome new clothes, but also you can support the channel this way. Don't forget to enter the code Hayato for additional 10% off. Works even with the sale items. For someone who always praised himself for being decisive, Ushijima had to admit the whole proposal was weighing on his mind a bit too much for his tastes. But it couldn't really be helped. It almost felt like he was being squished between two opposite forces. One telling him to propose as soon as possible after he witnessed how Endo acted around Endo, and the other almost screaming at him not to risk altering their relationship this much, possibly to avoid getting hurt by rejection. It was stupid, he knew. He was practically sure Tendo wouldn't reject his proposal just like he did in his nightmares. Because that's what it was. Nightmares. Nothing but bad dreams, and his worries materialized. But they were enough to make him doubt, especially when his mother also showed up. Just like now. He sat up on the bed and rubbed his face, desperately trying to erase those dreams, images from his mind, and forget the stinging voices he just heard. Disappointment. Unnatural. Shameful. All of those and much more left his mother's mouth in the dream, soon followed by Tendo's form appearing in front of him, adding his own. Weird. Binding. Useless. He glanced beside him, where Tendo was still sleeping peacefully, his soft breathing being the only thing interrupting the silence and keeping Ushijima sane for this moment. Sighing, he raked his fingers through his hair. It didn't even make sense why he was having nightmares about his mother. He didn't care about her opinion on his decision to date Tendo, let alone anything else Tendo and their relationship concerning. He was beyond that. The only thing he needed to know was that his father was happy for him. He wasn't even sure if those nightmares were the same that scared him so much before. But they definitely scared him now. Because if he wasn't scared of rejection, then of what? What was it that stopped him every time he clutched the ring box in his hand? Toshi? He startled when the sleep-heavy voice sounded from beside him. With guilt poking in his chest, he glanced down, meeting Tendo's still half-hooded but surprisingly awake eyes, and smiled softly. I'm sorry, Satori. Did I wake you up? Tendo let out a grumbly sound and shook his head, slowly stretching and rubbing the sleep out of his eyes, reminding Ushijima of a cat. Not really. He reached out and gently tugged on the hem of Ushijima's night t-shirt. What's wrong, dear? Bad dreams again? Ushijima sighed and nodded after a short hesitation. I suppose you can say that. He hated worrying Tendo for little to no reason. It wasn't like he was in such distress he would have to share it with his boyfriend to get help. But lying about it would be useless anyway, since Tendo already knew about the dreams, and would only get more worried if he left him in uncertainty. And yet, as he lay down again and pulled Tendo to his chest, wrapping him in a firm embrace, he could feel some of the invisible bonds around his lungs loosening their grip, and in the end, felt them fall completely when Tendo chuckled quietly and nuzzled under his chin. Aw, is my miracle in need of cuddles? Yes. He felt Tendo smiling against his skin. Then I shouldn't disappoint you, huh? You could never disappoint me. With anything. Tendo hummed and shifted slightly to get into a better position before raising his eyes to meet with Ushijima's. But really, is something troubling you? Apart from the nightmares. You looked a bit out of it the whole day. Sighing, Ushijima looked away, embarrassed by his inability to keep his inner turmoil out of his face. Still, this was an opportunity to test the waters. I am thinking about something. That seemed to pique Tendo's interest. Oh? What is it? Now or never. Say, do you think it would be reasonable for two people to get bound to each other, even though they live far from each other? He could almost see the cogs in Tendo's mind starting to turn as his brows knitted together. With bind, you mean marriage? Tendo paused, but it was visible that he was thinking. Well, I mean, as long as both of them are okay with it, then why not? Distance is not that much of an issue today. Just look at us. I guess marriage is a bit more challenging when distance is involved, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't work. But what if one had a career well underway and then got even more successful and had much more work, and the other wouldn't be able to help him properly because of their own career? Then wouldn't it be more bothersome for the first one? This time, the silence stretched for much longer, enough to make Ushijima tense up. But then a soft huff reached his ears, followed by Tendo snuggling closer to him. But being busy is also a distance, right? Sort of. So if those two could overcome one distance, second doesn't have to be that difficult to overcome either. He looked up again and gently pitched to Shishima's cheek, before pushing himself up to connect their lips. I think it all depends on the two. Who they are and how well they know each other, and how well they can talk to each other about everything. Ushijima blinked a few times, unable to find his voice for a while. Of course Tendo would be thinking like that. He should have known. But it was different with two hypothetical people than realizing those thoughts in one's own relationship. He snapped out of the weird stupor when Tendo gave him another peck on the lips and smiled. And despite everything, the sight alone was enough to calm him down and open his throat enough to return the smile and connect their foreheads. I think you worry too much. Yeah, I probably do. You are right. As always. Of course. Now go to sleep again. We have a plan for tomorrow, remember? How could I forget? They settled back into their usual sleeping position, with Tendo wrapped around Ushijima like an octopus, and having his head laid on his chest. And not even 2 minutes later, Ushijima could already hear soft snoring from his boyfriend. Smiling, he ran his fingers through the now a bit longer red hair and closed his eyes too to catch at least a few hours of sleep, his last thought belonging to the small box hidden in his bag. He could do this. They could do this. And see those doors over there? There could be a secluded seating area. Isn't that great? Ushijima had to smile listening to Tendo's excited rambling as he led him around the building he decided to rent, showing him his vision of his own future pastry shop. It is, indeed. Seeing Tendo in his element always managed to raise his mood and disperse all of his worries, and today was no different. He had seen the crude plans Tendo made before his arrival, and together with what he told him now, he could clearly picture the whole project in front of his eyes. His heart swelled as the redhead threw his arms around his neck. Ah, this is so exciting, Toshi. I can't believe this is really happening. His smile faltered a bit. Though, are you sure you don't mind that I went along with Endo's help? You know, since... Ushijima shook his head immediately and closed the distance between them to silence Tendo's next word. Even if his jealousy reached the roof, this was Tendo's dream, and he definitely wasn't going to ruin it because of his resentment towards the other man, be his intentions innocent or not. Don't worry about me. I really don't mind. Tendo visibly relaxed. He pressed a quick peck on his lips before jumping away and skipping around, adding details to his mental plan of the place. Ushijima followed him with his gaze, a small smile resting on his lips, and a hand firmly clutched around the ring he took with him. He thought a lot about the whole thing in the morning while they prepared to visit the house, and finally reached a firm decision, disregarding every bad dream he had in the last month, and silencing the tiny part of his mind that warned him against making such a huge step. He had decided. It was the true now or never. He took a deep breath and lowered himself to one knee like he had seen in the movies they watched together so often, his heart hammering into his ribs, and his hands getting sweaty as he held the ring in between his fingers. And we could put some cottagecore decorations here. Or do you think... Satori, can you look at me? Huh? Sure, but... The rest of the sentence turned into a wheezed breath. Tendo's eyes widened as he opened his mouth a few times without any words leaving it, and Ushijima faltered, promptly forgetting the whole speech he was preparing for so long. I know this isn't the best place of all, but it is a special place for you, so I thought it would be a good place to ask. Would you marry me, Satori? A strange, strangled whine left Tendo's throat, but before Ushijima could start panicking, he stepped closer as if in a daze, his hands slightly trembling when he ran his fingers over the ring still in Ushijima's hand. Are you asking for real? This isn't some joke or prank, right? Ushijima shook his head and took Tendo's hand in his own, but still held onto the ring. No, I'm serious. You are the most important person in my life, ever since we met all those years ago, and I cannot imagine spending the rest of my life with anyone but you by my side. I know there is a distance between us, and perhaps soon there might be a second distance too, but I believe we can work it out, that we know each other well enough that no distance can break what we have. So would you do me the honors of allowing me to call you my husband? Then those eyes glossed over, and before Ushijima could say anything else, he threw himself on his knees too and wrapped his arms around Ushijima, hiding his face in the crook of his neck. His voice shook when he spoke again. Silly, as if I could say no to that. He pulled away again, wiping his eyes as a soft chuckle escaped his mouth. You know, I don't think I've heard you talk so much since that match with Karasuno in our third year. Ushijima relaxed. He took Tendo's hand and slid the ring on his finger. It needed to be said. How long were you preparing this? Far too long. Tendo chuckled softly as he inspected the ring, the sun coming in through the large windows making the gem in it shimmer even more. It's beautiful. It's a pink sapphire. The jeweler said it symbolizes love, strength, and the ability to power through hardships. Smiling softly, Tendo cupped his cheeks and brought their lips together, leaving their foreheads touching when they parted. Thank you, Miracle. You have no idea how happy I am right now. He squeezed Ushijima's hand. I'm sure we can do this, marriage and all. Even with the distance. I know we can. Ushijima was sure he had never smiled so wide before. I believe so too. Tendo nodded, apparently satisfied, and stood up, holding his hand out to Ushijima to help him up too. They entwined their fingers together before Tendo brought them up to land a kiss on the back of Ushijima's hand. What do you say we go celebrate now? I know a great restaurant down the street. I'm sure you will love it. They might even give us a free dessert if you propose again. Rolling his eyes in a loving exasperation, Ushijima pulled him close by his waist to kiss the smirk of his face, but he would be lying if he said he was anything less than ecstatic about the proposal. They could do this. Everything was going to be alright.